right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Looks like everybody is pretty much here. Once again, we would like to introduce Justin Jones-Fosu. He is going to be facilitating a workshop on goal setting and working meaningfully. We really enjoyed your last event, and we are all looking forward to participating in this one. Take it away, Justin.
Awesome. So first of all, how y'all doing? All right. We got people doing well. Okay, all right. So we're gonna have a really good time. This is a little bit different. We're treating this like a virtual workshop. For me, virtual workshops are a little bit different than virtual keynote. So you'll see my slides. I'll be putting you into breakout rooms and all that good jazz. There's gonna be a lot of interaction as we work through kind of goal setting through difficult times. So I hope you're prepared to become engaged. So what I would ask you to do, everybody who's on, if you would not mind, if you're able to, turn your videos on. The reason it's going to turn your videos on is it's going to be for those who are able to. When I put you in the breakout rooms, you're going to be engaging with people in the breakout rooms. So this is different than the webinar. With the webinar, we're able to just kind of like listen and do that. But I'm going to be asking questions, engaging you in a unique and different way. So if you're able to, put your video on, and you'll definitely need to turn your audio on. Not now, but turn your audio on when you go into the breakout rooms, because you'll be talking with different people. So if you just planned on just kind of like sitting back and like letting it play in the background, this is the wrong workshop. This is actually a real workshop we're going to get you engaged with. So I first want to hear, if you don't mind putting into the chat, just one thing that you've been grateful for since the weekend. So one thing that you've been grateful for, if you don't mind putting that into the chat, and then we'll get started. Sunshine, yes. Good weather. Oh, that's good. Morning walks with my husband before work. That's good. All right, I started meditating with my best friend. Holding me. Yeah, okay, best friend accountability. Whoop whoop. Great weather. The weather. Be more prepared for my finals than usual. Yes. Isn't that awesome? You're better than me. My friends, today was warm and nice. Flowers. Aw. Now, did you get flowers? Or are you just appreciating the flowers that are outside? This is good. I'm grateful for the relationships with my friends and family. This is good. This is really, really good. Awesome. So what we'll do, there's going to be opportunities that if there's ever a point where you want to share something, I'm going to actually, allow you to be able to share. And so just typing the word share. And then, we'll turn your audio on. So just a couple of housekeeping rules. Obviously, one, when you're not talking, have your mute on. But definitely make sure your mute is off. Your mute is off when you go to the breakout rooms and you're engaging with each other. And so we're going to have a good time. So if you have a piece of paper, grab a piece of paper, or however you choose to take notes. You may have a little split screen in the computer. If you want to see me and you're kind of not minimizing the screen, but you're somewhat minimizing it, so it's just one thing, so a speaker view, click on the speaker view button, and when you do the speaker view, then you'll see me even if you're taking notes in a different format, whether it's Word, Pages, or something else. So other than that, we'll have a good time, we'll try to go probably up to about 10:45, 10:50, and 7:45, 7:50 for you. I'm Eastern Standard Time. Many are like, what? Like, this is a 3-hour workshop? I saw some of your faces already. But we're gonna go, and then we'll offer some time for Q&A. But if you have a question at any point, please. Oh, you got some flowers? Okay, let me find out, Judy. If you at any point have any questions, just type in question into the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat as we go along. So let's dive in. So I'm gonna share my screen, and I'll be going in and out of sharing it. So please don't mind. All right, boom. Wow. Awesome. All right, so I want to make this very simple, but impactful for us as we think through kind of goal setting, and goal setting in difficult times is similar but very different than goal setting in normal times, right? And we want to be able to talk through some of the basics of goals, but then also we want to be able to engage in some things that can help us right here in this season and working through some of the barriers and things that we uncover. And so the first really kind of thing that I want you to identify and ask the question, when you hear goals, I want you to put this in the chat, what immediately comes to mind when you hear the term goals? What immediately comes to mind? Okay. Adulting, get her done. Smart goals, physical goals, that's good. Self-improvement, dedication, determination, accomplishments, something that's measurable, something to be conquered or accomplished, effort, smart goals, okay. My driving force, end-game happiness, achieve, accomplishments, rewarding. Okay, this is good. This is all in line. And sometimes when we think of goals, one of the things that we often think of goals is just sometimes our professional lives, but I'm glad some of you talked about just even the personal lives. Mountains, yes. I'm a big mountain person as it relates to goals. Like I love hiking and specifically trekking because it allows me to be able to grow and develop and actually reach the peak of something. And so I think mountains are super dope. So as we think about what goals look like for us, I want you to categorize this into three different categories. Now we talked about this for those who are on the webinar. We talked about these three different categories in terms of work, and that can be academic work and or the normal sense of work, personal, and that's you, and relational. So as we're thinking about goals, I want you to think about it in these three different categories. For work, and that can be academic and or work. You better work. All right, Rihanna, I think in songs, sorry. Personal and how it relates to you, your own personal goals. And those are things that could be around health, fitness, emotional, different things like that. And then relational in terms of some of the goals that you have as it considers relating to your relationships in your life, your community, the things that you do potentially for others. And so those are the three categories. So the first thing I want to do is ask the 4 questions. Now, when I talk about the 4 questions, these are the 4 questions that I want you to think about and actually begin to work on now. And these 4 questions are simply this. The first question is, and I'll make sure that you have this when I'm doing the breakout rooms, because I'm going to have you talk about this within your breakout rooms, is the first question is 1, where am I now? Where am I now? All right. The second question is, where do I want to be? The third question is, what are the barriers preventing me from getting there? And then the fourth question is, how do I remove the barriers? Right? So this is really I call it the 4 questions, but this is really something that's used in consulting called the 4-stage analysis model. And in the 4-stage analysis model, it's a really simple tool to ask these questions in terms of where am I now? Where do I want to be? What are the barriers preventing me from getting there? And then how do I remove the barriers? And the reason that this is important is because we often don't think about 2 of the questions. Normally in goal setting, we think about, all right, what do I want to accomplish? And then how do I charge ahead? But we don't press pause and ask the question, where am I now? Like in relation to everything that I'm trying to set for as a goal, where am I practically right now? But not just where am I right now, but the other thing we often don't measure for or think about is like, what are the barriers? Like, what are some potential barriers? Because some of us are hopeful optimists. And, if you're the kind of person that's like, I can do anything. I can do anything. Oh, I want to. Right. Like that may be you as a hopeful optimist. Like, I can accomplish any goal. And some of you are like looking at everything that you do side-eye like, I'm not sure about that one. Right? These are the 2 different types of people that approach this. And so the people that look at it side-eyed are happy for these barrier questions. But the challenge is for the hopeful optimist is not only utilizing the barrier questions, but also talking about what can you do to remove the barriers. So in that balance, I want you to identify one of the areas. We talked about it before, work, personal, relational. And I just want you to walk through one aspect of your life. And I'm going to put you into breakout rooms to start talking about one aspect of your life that you want to look towards right now, right? I'm not talking about something, and we'll go through the duration of time and things like that in a little bit later. But just right now, in the season where you are, a goal that you want to set for yourself. Right now, we're not going to talk about smart. I talk about real a little bit, so the smart versus real. But in work, personal, relational. So, I'll give you a great example. Academic could be, hey, I want to study for 2 hours every single day, right? Great goal. Now I want you to talk about where are you now as it relates to studying. So you may say, actually, I'm only doing 40 minutes, right? Where do you want to be? Where I want to be at a place of 2 hours, all right? What are the barriers preventing you from getting there? Well, it seems like Netflix just keeps calling my name. I don't know how it happens, but it's just like, Judy, Judy, right? Gina, right? And so it's calling our names, and we're asking the question, how to do this? And then how do I overcome the barriers? And so you start to plan out and think through some of the things that are challenging you. But you might find if I start a certain way, that I'm able to, if I start my day in a certain way where I do that first, that I'm able to accomplish the first 2 hours, right? So you start to brainstorm. So I want you to work together to think through this. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to stop to share for a second. Before we go into breakout rooms, let me exit out here. Before we go to breakout rooms, what I want to do is I want to ask, does anybody have any questions as we go on to the breakout rooms? Because I want you to go through the 4-stage analysis model. What I will do is I will, as soon as we get in the breakout rooms, I'm going to send through the chat the 4 questions so that you can have those right there in the chat, so everybody has that information. But any questions before you go in? Nope. Okay. All right. So what I will do, this is room, awesome. All right, so in your breakout rooms, now you'll have about 6 minutes to go through this. So be mindful as you're sharing with each person. Be mindful that one person doesn't dominate the entire time, but help each other. Think through some of these thoughts with each other. Help give some feedback, and then we'll try to fine tune. And we'll come back, and I'd love to hear some of the things that you came up with. So we'll kind of workshop this together to figure out ways to even make it better. And then we'll go along and talk about some of the other aspects of goals. So, all right, let's begin. All right, seems like everybody back in. So what I'd love to do is get a couple people that don't mind sharing what they discussed, what they came up with, so you went through the 4-stage analysis model, the 4 questions. What were some of the things that you came up with as relates to either your work, your personal and or relational lives? So if you would like to share, if you don't mind just typing in share in the chat, and we'd love to hear from you. Awesome. Okay, perfect. All right, Sheridan, if you unmute yourself and if you mind sharing with the group, please.
Yeah, so the one I was looking at was towards the work academic side of things, and trying to either continue my career like with schooling or with work, and or both. So with where am I now? I mean, I have 2 basically part-time jobs that are related to my academics, and they're going to be gone at the same time. And I'm looking at what I want to be. I want to do something in like the paralegal studies or paralegal, helping like lawyers and things like that. Barriers in my way are actually looking at what areas, what type of paralegal, just because I've started looking at it, but it's a lot, several different areas. How do I remove the barriers? Definitely more Googling, more just reading up about them and talking with other people in my community about places that are around. And yeah.
That's awesome. If everybody could turn off your mute for just 1 second and give her a round of applause. Turn off that mute, a round of applause. Hey, all right, Shannon. Hey. All right. Awesome. I love it. All right. Thank you so much. I think that was really, really good. I think, one of the things that we sometimes do in establishing the 4 questions is when we get to the barriers, there could be a list of several different barriers that may be there. And one of the things that we want to be able to do is align the barrier with how to overcome it. So never put down a barrier that we can't put a way to overcome that. And even if we can't figure out exactly how to overcome it, it could be a step in overcoming it, like talking to someone who's currently in the paralegal field, or connecting with or reading a book that's on. So we may not have the full answer, and that's perfectly fine, because that's why mentors are here and are part of this process. But really, really, really good job. Perfect. Really, really good job, Sheridan. All right, Skylar, jump in. Yep. Go ahead and jump in and share what you came up with.
Sure. So we went over the 4 questions because we saw it flashed briefly, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to type it out in the chat just to make sure if anyone else was needing it too, that it was there. So for me, it was, if I'm not engaged in a topic, I have the hardest going through it. So if there will be like chapters or certain classes that I'm just like, I can't find a way to engage or find interest in personally, then I have the hardest time retaining or trying to even go through the material. That even this term, I have an anthropology class where it's like font size 6, single spaced, really compact, tight, really in utilization of overly academic terms to make it sound smarter than what it is, and avoiding substantial talk, and that's frustrating. So I'm like, okay, I really have the hardest time with that. So that's acknowledging where I'm at is I have a hard time trying to get through even a chapter of this stuff. And I'd like a goal to be, at least get through, what's required, and being able to find ways that I can find to get through it. And maybe one of the barriers is only looking at it as a way to, can I get myself to engage with it? Maybe it's just trying different strategies to let that material sink in, and trying to overcome barriers in different ways, rather than trying to approach it on my level, that I have to meet it at maybe the professor's level, that I have to change how I'm going to be engaging with the topic. Maybe it's first read the first and last sentence of every paragraph and trying to get through that, then go back and see how much did I retain, how much did I miss, am I getting substance from this, asking myself those questions to make sure that I'm also on task, that I'm on top of it, but also trying to find ways, that I can get this material and hopefully utilize it someday.
Excellent. So can everybody turn off your mute for a second to give Skylar a round of applause? Let's go, Skylar. Woo! Go Skylar. Go Skylar. Go Skylar. All right. I like that a little bit better than just the whole press the applause button, right? we want Skylar to hear it and to feel it. And so thank you for those who are willing to share. I want to keep moving. We're going to have another chance for a breakout session and share time as we get close to the end. But I want to keep going through some of the content, because I think it'll be super, super helpful as we think through not just the 4-stage analysis model, which is an amazing tool to think through your goals right now in difficult times, but especially right now in difficult times, because it talks about the barriers. And sometimes our barriers change based upon the moment we're in. Right? And in the moment, some of the barriers for us could be motivation. Some of the barriers could be just a sense of loss and grief that, like we talked about last time. And so I want to dive into some of the other content pieces. If you have a question, please don't mind putting it in the chat as we go along. But the real questions, the 4 questions, are helpful for us to be able to frame that well. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to dive deeper into the content. All right. So normally what we find in goal setting and goal setting theory is that there are generally people think about two different ways to think about goals, right? Short and long term. Many of us have heard it. This is the big thing. So short normally is like a shorter amount of time. Does anybody know what the research says? What is generally considered a short-term goal? Anybody? Okay, I'm glad you guessed that in your brain. Generally, it's a 0 to 1 year. And so 0 to 1 year is normally considered a short-term goal, and it's normally juxtaposed with a long-term goal, which is longer than that. But the way I've broken those into are into 3 different categories, and that's short, which is 0 to 1 year. And so you'll have short-term goals, which could be, hey, I want to accomplish this by next week, right? That falls within the short term. Or by next year this time, I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z, right? That's short term. The midterm goals are normally 1 to 5 years. And that's, for some of you, 5 years is long term, right? You're like, 5 years? That's a midterm, right? Sorry for utilizing the word midterm. I apologize. Mid goals, right? Many of you, your heart just stopped. Like, midterm, no, it's finals time, right? But mid goals or midterm goals, sorry, I have to use it. But short-term goals, midterm goals are 1 to 5 years, and the long-term goals are normally 6 until, right? And those are the big picture, big macro potential goals. And in those categories, so as you're writing out, so if you're taking notes, I want you to put those in those categories, because many of you right now, the focal point needs to be in terms of the short-term goals. And it's dealing with finals already, I know. All right. Some of you are dealing with just right now, what do we do? What do I do? Like, what can I do in the next month? Like, some of y'all are like, can I just get through finals? Please, right? I'll set any goal after finals time. But what you want to be able to do is categorize your goals into those things. And you want to ask the questions. And so these are some of the things that I would encourage to work backwards from, right? Stephen Covey talks about 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, beginning with the end in mind. And when you begin with the end in mind, one of the things I think is helpful is establishing some of those long-term goals first, and then working backwards to midterm goals, and then short-term goals. Because many of us, we can get short-sighted and have some short-term goals that may have nothing to do with ultimately what we want to accomplish, what we want to do, or what does that long-term vision look like for us. But this working backwards process in terms of long-term, midterm, and then short-term goals helps us. Now, let me categorize these in three different ways, right? And this is what I call real. So many of you all have heard of SMART, right? So what's the S stand for in SMART? Specific. The M, you can mouth it. I see your mouths. Measurable. Okay. The A, or you can chat it. Put it in the chat. Attainable. Okay. All right. The R. Megan's on a roll. Let's see if Megan has. Realistic. Right. There we go. All right, Sheridan. And then timely. I'll add that in there for you. So I love SMART goals, right? When I was doing grad school work focused on human learning, one of the things we focused in is goal setting theory. And one of the things I was missing is from SMART is the why. So I started adding things like SMART E, SMART Y, all these things, and realized that actually I can make it simple in what's called real goals. And real goals simply stands for this, that your goals, and it's very similar in these things, are realistic, explicit, attractive, and time-bound, right? That these are our goals, right? And when we call realistic, I also call that reachable, that your goals are reachable, right? That I like this phrase that it stretches you just enough, but it doesn't stress you. So it stretches you, but doesn't stress you. Like, that's the reachable. So like if you reach out your hand to somebody, it's like, all right, that it's pulling you. It's causing some aspect of tension, but it also is something that you can actually reach, but it's not stressing. And there's a lot of research around working what some people call it the zone, right? And so when I get into the zone, when I'm locked in and loaded and with all the things in my brain of things I need to accomplish, like being in the zone. So much great research on that. But they talk about one way to get into the zone is get into the zone is not doing things that are easy. It's not setting a goal that's super easy. It's setting a goal that challenges you, but that it's not so out there in the sense of like, like I want to solve cancer in the next 6 months, right? Like, like many of us, we want to defeat and beat horrible aspects of cancer, but 6 months might be a little bit unreachable right now with a lot of the cancer research. So that's a great example. So the explicit, right, is that it should be so clear that you're stating this. So give you a great example. So for me, one of the things I was doing is preparing to compete in a men's physique competition. And part of that is I had to set very real specific goals of what do I want my body fat to be, where did I need my weight to be, what are these specific things I need to do in order to be able to get to this certain level to be on stage and look like, whatever. And so that's the attractive piece, and that's the thing that's missing the most for a lot of us is why is this attractive to me in the first place, right? And so for many of you, I want you just to take a moment and I want you to write down for the goal that you started talking about in your group, whether from work, personal, relational, why is it attractive? Why is it attractive to you in the first place? And we'll dive into that in a second. But I want you just to take about 30 seconds to think about and ponder, write down on your piece of paper or on your computer, why is that specific goal attractive? Which is the thing that we normally miss. Why is it attractive? All right, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. All right. So I want you to save that because when we do the breakout rooms, we're going to dive into a little bit of the real component. But then the last one is length conscious, right? And so I put time bound, but I meant length conscious. Y'all have me thinking it's smart. Some of y'all are like, what? What are you talking about? That's REAT. REAT goals. REAT. REAT. But the real goals, thanks for laughing at me, Sheridan. The real goals are, thanks, Cynthia, it's length conscious. But the real goals is it has a length to it. It's length conscious. It's not just whenever, right? So for me, right, even though the competition has been canceled, that I wanted to still be able to say, hey, can I do this by my birthday? So my birthday is May 25th. Woo, hey. And I want to be able to set that length versus like, hey, I want to do this, right? So I hear some people say like, I just want to get better grades. I'm like, okay, what does that mean, right? First of all, is that reachable? I think it is reachable, but what does better grades mean, right? So I remember, when I was in school, undergrad, I wanted to graduate with at least a 3.6, right? And so like I literally mapped out all of my things because 3.6 was, I think, like magna cum laude at our school, and I mapped out like for the remaining 3 semesters, what did it look like? Like what did I actually have to get? I was very explicit. I knew, and for 18 classes, I only could get 15 B's and 3 A's, right? That's how I calculated it. So the first semester, 4.0. Hey, my first 4.0 ever. I was like, yes! The second semester, I got 2 B's, so I can only get 2 B's, right? And so I was like, oh, I'm on a line, right? And the last semester was a 4.0. But I was very explicit, and so I started to, it really funneled me into focusing on what I could really accomplish. Attractive. Why was it attractive to me, man? I had never gotten a 4.0. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to get a magna cum laude, so I could be like, look, guess what, Mom? I got that magna cum laude, right? Like, that was important for me. But I also had the length conscious. It was built in because I wanted to graduate. I know many of you do too, right? So those are the things that, like, as we work through our goals, we have to ask, is it reachable, realistic? Is it explicit, attractive? Why is it attractive and the length conscious? So I'll kind of tell you a quick story about why the attractiveness piece is important. So I was this little kid, and I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And one of the things growing up in Grand Rapids, Michigan is that, let me stop sharing for a second, I'll be able to tell you the story, right? One of the things growing up in Grand Rapids, Michigan is that, we didn't have a lot of money, right? And so the interesting piece in not having a lot of money, had some stints with homelessness and all these kind of things, is that, we went to the Salvation Army to get our clothes before it became cool, right? And I was this little kid from like kindergarten to 8th grade, like, hey, how you doing? I'm Justin, haha. Horrible voice to have growing up in the hood, but that's a different story. And I remember, right, that my mom, she challenged the mess out of us. So, we still, over the summer, we still had to do book reports. We still had to, we volunteered at events so that we could get in for free. And I remember going, and I did well academically, right? And so I remember from kindergarten to 8th grade, I had a 3.8 GPA, right? I always got all A's and like 1 B plus. It's always the teacher's fault. And I remember, like, I went from 8th grade 3.8 GPA to 9th grade 1.9 GPA. And her name was Shanika. You see, y'all, I loved Shanika. She was intelligent. She was gorgeous. She had it all together. But she had me skipping school for her. So I started skipping school. I started, hanging out, just doing different things. I remember changed up. I went from, hey, how you doing? I'm Justin, to yo, what's up, son? Yo, what's up? And that's just not who I was. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're like, yeah, right, Justin. That sounds really good for this workshop, for the story. But that didn't happen in real life. Well, I'm glad you challenged me. Kindergarten through 8th grade. 9th grade. In West Philadelphia, born and raised. On the playground is where I spent most of my days. Chilling out, acting out, really, right? So you can clearly see the difference. But I remember my mom, made sure my grades improved. And I won't tell you how that happened, but she did. And I remember I went from rocking all these other kind of things to shifting. And I remember 11th grade year, over winter break, a question came over me. And I was like, Justin, like, why are you spending so much of your time trying to impress people who can't even give you scholarship money? I was like, why are you spending so much of your time trying to impress people who can't even give you a summer job or an internship? And it hit me that I've been spending my why in all the wrong places. So I remember, I came back 11th grade year, winter break, suit, shirt, tie, briefcase, on the public bus to public school. And I remember my friends would look at me like, yo, is Justin all right? Like, did somebody like die? Like, what happened? But I didn't care because my why began to shape what I began to do. And I remember I went off to college, first day as a new undergraduate student, stepped foot on campus, new suit, new shirt, new tie, skinny, the tie not me. And I remember these 2 young ladies walked up to me and said, excuse me, professor, do you mind sharing what class is? I was like, well, no, I don't. Class is that way, right? Now, super corny, they never talked to me again, but that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is that my why began to shape what I began to do. And it led me to sitting in the front row, right? It led me to get involved and engaged with different activities and join a fraternity and do all of these things and still graduate with 3.6. But the question is not about my why, it's what is yours? Because that's the driving force of your goal, right? If you can't state why this is attractive to you, then we're losing sight of the powered nature of our goals. So that's the aspect of one of the things is your goal should be real, it should be reachable, explicit, attractive, and length conscious. Right? Now, there's a couple of things that I want to give you that I think would be super helpful. But what I want to do, I want to give you quick, like 60 seconds, maybe 5 minutes, 60 seconds each person in the breakout rooms. I want you to share for you which of those of the real aspect of the goals really resonates the most to you. Which one have you been missing? Or which one resonates the most to you, right? And again, it's reachable, explicit, attractive, length conscious. Which one have you been missing as you've been creating your goals for yourself, right? So what I'm gonna do, put you in breakout rooms real quick. All right, boom, boom. And you're just gonna talk about either one you've been missing or the thing that resonates the most to you from the real goals, all right? back into your breakout rooms. You may begin. Go ahead. Awesome. I think people are back. Everybody's back. Woo! All right. Cool. All right. So, yes. Yes, I did. All right. Cool. Awesome. So I wanted to, as you think through the real goals, I want to give you a couple other really tools that I think would be helpful. And then what we'll do is then we'll open it up for Q&A. All right. So be mindful of time here. So a couple other tools. Hopefully you found the kind of talking through it. What I realized, like something be like, oh, I don't want to do breakout rooms. I think when we talk through it, I love this about Stephen Covey. He talks about like when we teach others or we share some aspect of it, it actually deepens the level of learning in ourselves. And so I want to be able to do that same thing for you as you're deepening that level of learning, because it helps you to take it even to another level. So as we think through that, a couple of the things I think could be super, super helpful in this journey, right? And one of those is in professional accountability partners, right? And in professional accountability partners is a term I came up with after I realized that we can actually accomplish more when we have other people doing it. So for all those who do anything fitness related, put your hand up in the group. You put your hand up, put your hand up, put your hand up. Okay. Like, you know, when I used to go to the gym, right? I used to be able to like lift like 1,000 pounds bench press, right? For those who work out, you're like absolutely not, right? But like you know, it always when I got that last little rep up, it's always good to have that person right there to help me. And so I actually created this term called professional accountability partners that actually helps us to accomplish more of our goals. When you have someone who you're working with consistently over time to be able to work through your goals. So I meet with my professional accountability partner. We're like-minded in the sense where we talk about our goals. Our sessions are probably about 60 to 90 minutes. We do it once a month. And we're on Zoom. Some people do it in person, but be a little bit hard. Make sure you're physical distancing. But we get on Zoom and we just talk about our goals. And we talk about what we accomplished from last month. We call it our OB, our one big item. If we had to do one big thing by our next meeting, what did we accomplish? Right? And so there's a whole process and thought process through that. And what I'll do is I'll try to include kind of a one-pager in the follow-up that you'll be able to get on establishing your prep, because there's different types of meetings. There's an exploration meeting where you're just kind of figuring out, is this a good fit for each other, right? Then there's an expectations meeting. And in the expectations meeting, you talk about your goals, your short, your mid, and long-term goals. You do a personal SWOT analysis, so you identify your strengths, your weaknesses, what are the opportunities and threats in the environment. And you really kind of set the expectations of what you hope to accomplish, but then also some of the logistics components. And then there's the kind of the evaluation meeting. And the evaluation meeting is usually, you'll do that anywhere from halfway in, so it could be 6 months in, or at the end of the year to find out, should we keep going forward. So one thing that's super helpful in goal setting, especially during difficult times, is it's often very easy for us to lose our motivation. It's just realistic. It's hard. We can struggle with it. I personally struggle with that. But in having that professional accountability partner that I have to follow up with, and if I don't do something, that person asks me, so why didn't you do it? And what are you going to do differently next time? It doesn't allow me just to kind of creep into my Netflix cocoon and be like, all right, what's the next movie? So that's the personal accountability partners. And there's a lot more that we can go into with that. It's a whole separate workshop by itself. But the last thing that I've mentioned before, but I think would be also very helpful, is doing the focused frog. And we talked about this to Live to a Different Beat, but I want to dive in a little deeper to it just in mentioning this. Monday through Friday, and you can set your own time frame, is I do this thing called the focused frog, where this person is different than my professional accountability partner, but this is something I established just for this time, but I plan on keeping it going. That I get on the phone with, actually I do a Zoom call with a good buddy of mine, a fellow speaker, Dara Bellamy, and we talk about how we're doing, what's going on, you know, what progress have we made, what are we grateful for, and then what we do is we put our phones on Do Not Disturb. We set an alarm, we press mute on our Zoom, and we work for the remainder of that time. It's normally about 45 to 50 minutes of time remaining, and then we come back at the last 5 minutes and we talk about what we accomplished and we show the other person or we ask a question. And so Monday through Friday, even if I didn't get anything else done that day, which I normally do, but I at least got done the Focus Frog. And the reason I call it the Frog is Brian Tracy wrote a book called Eat That Frog, and he talks about doing the hardest, most challenging, daunting thing first. So that is the first thing in my day where I'm able to accomplish something that's specifically focused on work that I want to do, but it's the hardest thing to be able to take a bite out of. So I've gotten some really cool and challenging things done during the Focus Frog time. And so those are really practical things, having a professional accountability partner that's more of a monthly meeting, but now my daily Focused Frog time where I'm able to get that most challenging, daunting thing done. So consider that, because it's even more prevalent and helpful right now during difficult times. And last but not least, your goals, at some point, some big piece of it should be more than just about you. All right, now, before all the craziness was happening, for me, every presentation that people brought me in for, I was donating part of that towards educational initiatives in Ghana. Right now, every presentation that I'm doing, that people are bringing me in for, I'm donating towards COVID-19 efforts to be able to help support those on the front line, the essential workers, and things like that. Because for me, it's all about how do I keep making this meaningful, right? That in my goals, part of the attractiveness is creating a space that it's something that's bigger than me. So for some of you, it might just end with you, but I want you to identify at least one of your goals that's bigger than you. Because if it's all just about us, then we're not thinking big enough. So with all that being said, I want to stop and thank you all for your time. I wanted to ask, were there any questions as relate to anything we covered? And that could have been from the 4 questions, the short, mid, and long term, real goals, the professional accountability partners, and or the Focused Frog that might be helpful. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, Angela. Any questions? If you have a question, just type in share. So we'll unmute you so you can ask the question, and we'll move forward. Yep, absolutely. That's a great question, Gina. So when I'm talking about relational, work, personal, relational, that is kind of interpersonal, working with other people. Could be friends, could be family, which is separated from the personal ones, which could be like my fitness, my emotional health, other things. There's some overlap times with the work, personal, relational, but yes, it's absolutely the goals. I'm talking about interpersonal relationships. So that's not just, hey, that's my boo, right? It could also be your friends, your boo friends, right? So that's good. I have a frog charm clipped to my clipboard now. Every time I look, yes, okay, all right, Focus Frog, let's go, Judy. Yeah, I think Judy was the one who got some flowers anyway. So cool. So can you tell me what the SMART goals are? What are the types of meetings on the Focus Frog? What is the book related to the Focus Frog? Okay, perfect. Great job, Judy. So SMART goals are a goal-setting system that it's been set for many decades now. It said that you need these 5 things in order to have a goal to accomplish, and that's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And so people really would ask the question to their goal that they set for themselves: is it specific enough? Can I measure it? Can I set a time? Can I measure it? Did it accomplish this? What did I want to do by this? Right. So give you a great example. Say, Justin says I want to lose weight. Well, is that measurable? No, you can't say that did I measure it? It's not specific and or measurable. But did Justin lose, say, 5 pounds or 5% body fat? Like, that's something that's measurable, attainable, and then realistic and timely. So that's the SMART goals. The types of meeting on the Focus Frog. So there's really only one meeting for the Focus Frog, and we set the duration for 60 minutes just because we felt like that was helpful. So for the Focus Frog meeting, it's just the 60 minutes. We start off with what progress have we made, what what are we grateful for, and then what are we going to focus in on for the remainder of that time. So that's the focus frog. For the professional accountability partners, which I mentioned had 3 different meetings, those 3 different meetings were the exploration meeting and ask the question, is this person a good fit for me? Right? And you're just working through, are you a good fit? Am I a good fit? The expectations meeting, where that's where you go through your own expectations and you introduce your goals in terms of your, sorry, not your smart, but your short, your mid and long-term goals. And then you have your evaluation meeting, and evaluation usually comes halfway in. So if you're setting it up for about a year, just to kind of say, is this going to work? We at least ask for you to give it a year. You do an evaluation meeting in 6 months, and then at the 12 months. So those are the 3 meetings normally. It's the exploration, expectations, and the evaluation meeting. So perfect. This is good. And the book related to the Focus Frog. It's a mesh of 2 different things, but Brian Tracy wrote a book called Eat That Frog. And the whole concept of that is do the hardest, most challenging, daunting thing first, when we often do it last. So that's the book. It's Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. And my friend Marcy Rader has a thing called Focus 90, where she actually gets on the Zoom, has other people get on it, but I just meshed the 2 together to create the Focus Frog of like it's a partner peer-to-peer. So it's really good. All right, it's a bad idea for your accountability partner to be your Focus Frog. Also, yes. Only reason I say it could be a bad idea is usually these people, like for your Focus Frog, is somebody that you can really lock in on a day-to-day basis, that can speak, not your language, but it's just a person that's, you all don't have to necessarily be in the same industry. You don't have to be doing the same things. You all don't have to both be students. It's just time for you to be able to focus on something. So this person doesn't have to be as locked into who you are and what you do. For your professional accountability partner, they're more locked into your long-term goals, the things that you want to be able to accomplish. So while you could do that with your professional accountability partner, you might reach relational burnout, where not only are you speaking every day, but then you have this really big meeting once a month. So I advocate for having those be 2 different people, but it never hurts to try. Never hurts to try something. I have 2 different people. I have a person that just does my Focus Frog time, and then I have my prep partner. And that's been helpful for me because it also just gives me other points to think about the things I'm trying to accomplish. So really, really good question. Oh, I'll actually type it in here. Eat That Frog 21. Okay, all right, Sheridan, look at you adding stuff in the chat. I love that. Because y'all are so awesome and dope, do you mind, does somebody else mind typing in the SMART goals into the chat? Okay, Angela. Y'all are on it. This is why y'all are so dope. Okay, cool. So closing us out, please.
I got it. Thank you so much for coming in, everybody. We would awesomely like to thank Justin for another wonderful event. Please check your emails. We're going to be developing a survey for everybody to take about how you liked the experience. So keep an eye out for that. And let's all give Justin a hand of applause. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you. All right, y'all. Y'all have a very great night. I'm getting ready to go to bed. Yay. I took a nap early in the day just for y'all. So, all right. I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you. Bye, Gina. Bye, Judy. Sheridan. Woo! Emily. Skyler. Cynthia. Morgan. I want everybody to leave it so fast. Anthony. All right. I love that background, Gina. That's a nice background.